Okay, thank you so much for coming. This is our final event this season on site. So we're very excited that you could come join us in this final week of our autumn shows. Everything comes down right after Thanksgiving, and there's a big turnover, so you should make sure to check us out after the holidays. My name is Deborah Barkin. I'm the creative director here at the Berman Museum, and I'm very happy to welcome you here this evening for this event where we will hear from artist Colette Fu and two of her student collaborators on this project. This is what you're looking at here. This work here, A Day in the Terraced Rice Fields, was the result of the 2025 Interdisciplinary Visiting Artist in Residence program that we have here every year at the Berman. And this puts students from across the curriculum, some who have spent time in museums, some who have never spent time in museums, in close collaboration with a working artist, in this case, Colette Fu, from the very beginnings of a project, the research and conceptualization through to fabrication and installation and programming. So it's a very unique program. It always unfolds in this space, and the work is usually up for 2 semesters. So I am going to introduce our speakers tonight and then turn things over. And Colette will talk about her work for about 30 plus minutes, and then we will turn things over to Arin and Lucy, and they will ask some questions, have some conversation, and then moderate a discussion Q&A with all of you. So Colette Fu is a Philadelphia-based artist who received her MFA in Fine Arts Photography from the Rochester Institute of Technology in 2003, and soon after began devising complex compositions that incorporate photography and pop-up paper engineering. Her pop-up books are included in the National Museum of Women in the Arts, Library of Congress, Metropolitan Museum of Art, Getty Research Institute, and many private and rare archive collections. Fu's numerous awards and grants include a Foreman Arts Initiative Works Grant, Philadelphia Cultural Treasures Grant, Joan Mitchell Painters and Sculptors Fellowship, the Meggendorfer Prize, Leeway Transformation Award, and a Fulbright Research Fellowship to China. She exhibits widely and teaches pop-up courses and community workshops internationally. Lucy Fabiszewski is a junior at Ursinus studying media, film, and visual arts design. In addition to her studies across a variety of art mediums, Lucy has been a student worker here at the Berman since her first year on campus, and she is excited to continue exploring creative paths in production design and visual storytelling. Arin Captis is currently majoring in anthropology and sociology and minoring in museum studies and art history. Spending so much time here in the Berman Museum sparked his interest in processes behind creating and displaying artwork. With an adoration for arts in all shapes, sizes, and mediums, he is fascinated by the time and care that goes into completing a piece. When outside of the classroom, he enjoys creating art of his own, collecting trinkets, and hunting for the perfect pint of ice cream. Amen to that. All right, please join me in welcoming our speakers tonight.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for coming, everyone, and thank you, Deborah, for that wonderful introduction. And thanks, Arin and Lucy, for joining me tonight. I wanted to start by showing you a little bit about my other work and the background to why I even create works like this. So, I'm sorry. The slides are automatically advancing. Would you mind helping me so that I could manually advance them? Okay. Yeah, somebody. Sorry about that. It's yeah, it's just automatically
Yeah.
advancing.
How long it's taking for it's going.
Okay. Oh, see, did you do that?
I just did that.
Oh, okay.
So I think it is the transitions that are put on here. Because every single one of them has a little fade in transition on it. So, go to, sorry, this. Take Looks like none of them else have transitions on them, so I think you should be okay now.
Okay.
Let's turn it on.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry about that, everybody. So this is a photo of me with my dog Nori. She's going to be 3. This was during a photo shoot with the National Museum of Women in the Arts. And somebody was actually holding the dog, but she got away. And luckily, she jumped over all of the books into my lap, and the photographer snapped this shot. So I call myself a pop-up paper engineer, and I've been making pop-up books mainly with my photographs for over 20 years now. People often ask me why I make pop-up books or how I specialize in them. In my mid-20s, I went to Yunnan, China to teach English. My mother was born there, and I taught at a university for students from different ethnic minority groups from around the province. There, I learned not only that China has 55 officially recognized ethnic minority groups, but that my mother was from one of them called the Nosu Yi. 25 of those groups reside in Yunnan province. So so you can see Yunnan is in red. It borders on Tibet, Burma, Laos, and Vietnam. So a lot of that explains why the province is so diverse. On the right is a photo of me in a Nasa Yi costume when in the 1990s, just when I started to travel in these areas. So I taught English for a year, and then my second year in China, I studied Chinese language and minority culture. And then the third year, I started traveling around the province. And as my language skills got better, I started taking pictures and traveled extensively by myself with a cheap plastic Yashica point and shoot 35mm camera. This is a Bai minority woman, BAI. My aunt, I have a relative who's a distant aunt that lives in this area, and she told me that the woman is considered the old lady of the village, and she's pouring red dyed pork lard over her head as a blessing. She also told me that she wore a mirror and sunglasses to ward off bad luck. These are Nashi women, NAXI, in Lijiang province. Not Nashi women live in an area called Lijiang, which is a Nashi autonomous prefecture. This is a Wa woman on the border of Myanmar and within Yunnan province. And the following photos are of Northern Yi people taken in the greater Liangshan Mountains of Sichuan province, my mother's ancestral home. So basically, after spending 3 years in China, I developed this passion for photography. So I decided to come home. I needed to start making money. So I decided to come home and study photography. And that eventually led to me getting my MFA in photography at the Rochester Institute of Technology. But right as I was about to graduate, I came upon an opportunity to attend an artist residency where my proposal was to learn how to make pop-up books. And this residency was 10 weeks long in Midland, Michigan. And it was such a gift. There's no fee. They provide you with a studio, a place, an apartment, and often you're working with other artists, sometimes writers too, or chefs or dancers. So basically, I became a residency hopper, and this image captures some of my favorite residencies. The top left is at the Bemis Center for Contemporary Arts in Omaha, Nebraska. And then on the right is the Swatch Art Peace Hotel in Shanghai, China. And then the one with the snow, that's McDowell in New Hampshire. And then on the bottom left is the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown. And then the one with the palm trees, that's Sacatar in Itaparica, Brazil. So I actually was asked to talk about residencies recently, and I realized now that I've gone to over 30. After several years of attending these artist residencies and learning how to make pop-up books with my photos at these residencies, in 2008, I applied for a Fulbright fellowship to return to Yunnan, where my proposal was to make a photographic pop-up book of the 25 ethnic minority groups that reside in Yunnan province. These are Yi women at a costume festival. And then when I returned in 2009, I started to make pop-up books from the photos. This is Wending Wa village, also on the border of Myanmar. They have a hair swinging dance. So I basically spent the next year making pop-ups with those photos that I took in 2008 during that Fulbright fellowship. This is Kaifuna and her family. They are of the Dulong minority in northwest Yunnan and reside along the Dulong River along the borders of Tibet and Myanmar. This one is specifically about a theory why the Dulong women tattoo their faces. Some believe that while the origin is not clear, some claim that it was the tattoos were done to make them unattractive to neighboring tribes who enslaved the Dulong and went after their women. Dulong women also believe that their tattoos resemble butterflies and that the souls of their dead turned into butterflies. As of 2013, there were only 28 tattooed Dulong women left. This is a photo of a Dai minority vendor. I went to this area in southern Yunnan for their annual water splashing festival. One of my favorite cuisines that I discovered in China was Dai food. Their food is similar to Thai food in that it combines sour, spicy, salty, and sweet but has its own distinctive style. This work is somewhat significant for myself because before living in China, I didn't like Chinese food. I wouldn't even eat rice. And this is Stone Forest as written in the center in red characters right to left. The characters were carved following the calligraphy of my great-grandfather who named the park in 1931. So most of those other books that I just showed you, they're about 17 by 25 inches. But then, and one of the main reasons I started making pop-up books was because they were portable and compact. But then here I am. This book was 48 inches wide, so I started getting bigger. And this book is about the Sani people of that live in and around Stone Forest. They're a subgroup of the Yi. And then in 2014, I went to an artist residency at the Swatch Art Peace Hotel in Shanghai. I spent 6 months there with the goal of traveling to other minority autonomous regions outside of Yunnan and used Shanghai as my base. China has 5 autonomous regions. They are Xinjiang. These are Uyghur men from northwest China's Xinjiang province. Uyghurs are a persecuted ethnic group. Ethnically and culturally, they are Turkic people living in the area known as East Turkestan, which the government controls and polices. So as it's a very sensitive subject portraying Uyghur people, I had decided to focus on something that I noticed when I came home. I had lots of photos of Uyghur food because their food is delicious. So I made a book about their food. One of the other autonomous regions is Tibet. I went to Eastern Tibet for their New Year. Thousands of Tibetan monks, pilgrims, and nomads annually attend the Monlang Great Prayer Festival, where a large tanka of Buddha is rolled out and sunned on the mountainside. Their communal prayers spread peace and help all beings overcome obstacles. And then this is the book that I created of that prayer festival. Another autonomous region is Inner Mongolia. And actually Inner Mongolia is not far from Beijing. And I went there for their Nadam annual festival. It's a festival of sports consisting of traditionally horse racing, archery, and wrestling. Wrestling is Mongolia's national sport. And then made a book about the wrestling. Those who wear colorful scarves around their neck have won before. They dance as they get on the field, mimicking the prance of lions, tigers, and deer. Only the winner will prance off the field. This is a pop-up book I made called Taohua Yuanji, which literally translates as utopia in Chinese language. And it's based on a poem that an Eastern Jing Dynasty poet wrote. He wrote of an isolated peach blossom valley where people lived a simple pastoral life. For centuries, people regarded this valley as imaginary. But the Zhuang people of Southwest Yunnan province claim that they are the village depicted in Tao Yuanming's story. The Zhuang are the largest minority in China. So I had the opportunity to create an installation in 2017 at the Philadelphia Photo Art Center. So I decided to make this book room-sized. And I chose it because the book would only be 5.5 feet high. And it was pretty stable because I didn't use a lot of glue. I used a lot of kind of like a dovetail, like insert parts together instead of worrying about the weight of using glue. So here we are creating the covers with Gatorboard. So this is the first large pop-up book I've ever created. And then we're rolling out vinyl for the cover. The Philadelphia Photo Art Center has 66-inch printers. So I basically made that book 1400% and printed the images and then adhered them to cardboard. I didn't have much time to experiment. So this is kind of on the fly. Like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? And then 1 month later, here we are at the opening reception. My proposal was to create the world's largest pop-up book. So it came to 14 by 21 feet. And then the book now is part of the permanent collection. Oops. Not sure why it's not playing. Okay, sorry. Can't show you this video, it's not playing. Okay, but here's some images of it. And I wanted people to be able to enter the cave. Was it last year? Yeah, last year I participated in a 5-person exhibition titled Slow Motion, which was on display at Grounds for Sculpture in Hamilton, New Jersey. Slow Motion reimagines the material possibilities of public memory, and the exhibition features work of artists that use unconventional materials and processes for sculpture. Whimsical was the key word I thought about when deciding what to create for the exhibition. I originally thought of creating a gigantic monument of spaghetti, much like the LP cover of the song On Top of Spaghetti, the song which I grew up with. And then on the right is a 19th century political cartoon depicting Angel Island, the immigration station in the San Francisco Bay, which existed from 1910 to 1940. It was built to control Chinese entry into the US, where people were detained for as long as 2 years. So basically, the work that I created is inspired by these two images. And also by this machine that I saw when I was traveling in Seattle. It's an automated salmon processing machine that they called the Iron Chink, and it was created to replace Chinese salmon canning laborers who made up most of the industry workforce in the US before World War II. So here we are. Now I'm printing on canvas because I wanted to really highlight the aspects of labor. And then the cover of this book used the imagery from the political cartoon of Angel Island. And here's a view of the book from above. We had chopsticks hanging from above too. Highlighted with blood, a roller coaster reminds me of growing up at the Jersey Shore, but also of the ups and downs and reoccurrence of strong anti-immigrant sentiment from 2 centuries before, which surfaced during the pandemic. Fire reminds us of the many Chinatowns that were burned down, yet references the ease of political ties in the 1970s and the introduction of new Chinese immigrants that brought different regional cuisines. The table references the kitchen table where families share stories, an altar, an offering, and the iron chink, the automated salmon processing machine invented to replace Chinese laborers in the 19th century. But despite these exclusionary practices and many more, a legal loophole made exceptions for merchant visas that permitted business owners to move freely in and out of the country, leading to an exponential growth in Chinese restaurants, which are now integral to American culture. The Chinese American Restaurant Association states that today there are over 45,000 Chinese restaurants across the US, more than the number of McDonald's, Burger King's, KFC, and Wendy's combined. So when I was trying to figure out what to build in this gallery, so the gallery is circled in red, And because it was long and had on a slight curve, I thought about a book that I already created called A Day in the Terraced Rice Fields. It's in the show in the gallery next that we just entered through. And this book is inspired by a book called A Day in the Zoo, which is also in the gallery. And A Day in the Zoo is a reproduction of a Victorian pop-up book published in 1890 by the German publisher of a well-known paper engineer of the time named Lothar Meggendorfer. Lothar Meggendorfer was an illustrator, cartoonist, humorist, and innovator of the movable book form. He has created some of the most intricate movable books even compared to today. And one of his most famous pop-up books titled International Circus is one of the books that inspired me when I was learning how to make pop-up books. But at the same time, Meggendorfer's work provides insight into the prevalence of colonialistic thinking and cultural norms of early 20th century Europe. You see hierarchies between white Europeans and non-Europeans, mostly immigrants of African or Asian descent. So domestication of proper children represented white European superiority, and exotic animals and people were trained and captured. So here's a photo of the prototype for A Day in the Terraced Rice Fields. It's a 6-panel accordion fold pop-up book, originally where each panel measured 9 by 12 inches. So the whole book, when extended, measured 80 inches. And then, below you see kind of an initial installation design that measures about 700% the original size. And the book, the main concept of the book is to bring attention to complicated concepts of tourism, cultural preservation and heritage, and the economic impact of globalization on rural communities. So I printed the images at NextFab, which is a makerspace in Philadelphia. And then we adhered the images to this corrugated board. And then the students and I took turns manually cutting out these bars. The women were printed on canvas. So the original book was only 9 by 12 inches. Each panel was 9 by 12 inches. So when I expanded the images 700%, you can imagine how the resolution changed. So I find that canvas really kind of hides and adds texture to hide the loss of resolution and detail. And then here's putting the background together, which is the background is also printed on canvas and adhered with a cement. And then here the students tediously helped me adhere the painting to the background boards, and we painted them, and we used screws and cement because I've never created a book like this. For each book I make is a different format. So I want to make sure that I overdo it than underdo it, because the worst, I want to make sure that it doesn't fall apart when we're opening it or working on it. And then one thing you can't see, but I can show you later, is the cover. The cover is hidden on the other side. And here's how the whole book would open up. So the Red Yao women of Huanglao Village, Guangxi Province, wash their long hair in fermented rice water. Their village lies just 1 kilometer south of Longji, Dragon's backbone terraced rice fields. They cut their hair only once in lifetime during a coming of age ceremony as they become old enough to marry. The women add this piece as an extension to their natural hair, which often grows up to 7 feet long. A second extension is made from hair that has fallen out during combing. Oops. As grooms should be the first to view their uncovered hair, unwed women wrap their heads in black cloth. So when I visited the area in 2014 with a friend, the women would take down their hair, and for a small fee you could take photos with them. So I felt kind of like in between worlds, because you know, they think I'm the tour guide, they think I'm the translator. And then a curator in the past mentioned that when I was showing the small version of this book, they said the artist was taking photos of tourists that were taking photos of the women as they took their hair down. But I said, no, that's not right. I was one of the tourists taking photos of the women, and I wanted to make that clear. They didn't include that. And then here's a photo of the Longji terraced rice fields that is kind of hidden behind these bars. Thank you. So how are we going to proceed?
I could start by
Okay.
asking a few questions. I'm Lucy. I helped a lot with the fabrication and assisting with the construction of it. I love your work, and I'm very fascinated with how you utilize space and use such an interactive medium to tell these very serious themes. So I was gonna ask if you wanted to go more in depth on some of the challenges during construction and how you overcame certain aspects.
Sure. Some of the challenges during actual fabrication. Well, one thing is I can't create, now I can, but at the time of fabricating this, I couldn't create large works at home. Also, transportation is difficult too. So I built the work here, and every time you build in a new space, it takes some time to get used to the rhythm. And then so I think, and then also, you want light to work, but you don't want heat. So that was a big factor. I was worried about the temperature and the humidity affecting the board, but it looks exactly like it did when we finished installing it. The bars, that was something I initially thought would be really difficult. And it kind of was difficult, but people told me, like, maybe you should CNC cut them, maybe you should laser cut them. But then that would have involved having to move the material to another space. And that so in the end, and it would be very expensive. So in the end, we hand cut it, and Lucy did a lot of the cutting. And it wasn't actually as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed it. It was like not mindless, but you could like focus on cutting and then also just kind of zone out and yeah.
Yeah, because you have to be pretty precise to cut that pattern out. The lines are very straight. You know, oh geez. I can't, it was so long ago. Was it May? Is it May that we finished? I can't even remember the challenges. I find that often happens after doing something. You know, when you're done, you say, I'm never going to do that again. That was ridiculous. Because it was a lot of work, as I recall, but I've already forgotten. And someone was comparing it to birth. They were like, birth is really painful, and you say, I'm never going to do that again, but then you forget about it because it was all worth it. So, not that I can compare this to birth, let's say, as a fraction of that. Yeah.
I know that this came with it's okay. Is it going to keep doing that? I know that this piece, especially maneuvering it with the space, making it fit. I remember initially we had some issues with whether we wanted it to be in front of the pole or behind the pole.
Right.
How do you go from having your initial draft, planning out where things are going to go, and having to modify them? I know that might be very subjective based on the piece, but the process of making it so that it works with the space and both retains the initial idea that you were going for.
So originally, I wanted to put it in this space, on the concrete and follow the curve. But then you would have to look at it with the windows behind you, and then realizing that that it would be backlit. And then after finishing it, we realized that this space was the exact same. This space was the exact same size as the book. Also, when you place a book like this with under higher ceilings, the book starts to look smaller. But when you have it under a lower ceiling, it makes the book look larger. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's all we had. I guess we could turn it over to you guys, and if you guys have any questions for any of us.
Questions?
How do you ensure you cut straight lines out of the boards?
So in the beginning, we were using a ruler, like a metal ruler as a guide, but then we realized it was much faster if you just did it freehand. So it's just those of us that worked on that just had pretty good eye-hand coordination.
After a few tries of doing the straight lines, like it's a little shaky at first, but you kind of get a hang of it. And then even if you go a little bit outside of the lines, we found that when you back up, you can't really tell. And for the most part, we didn't go very much outside of the lines.
Yeah, I cut a lot of strips of canvas that held the pieces together. And it was a
Right.
lot of the same sized pieces over and over again, but eventually you do kind of get the swing of it. I think that the rhythm that this piece sort of provided, I remember doing a lot of gluing and rolling on and painting the glue, and it just becomes like you learn to appreciate all of the repetitive things when they culminate into something larger like this.
And remember the cover?
Yes, I remember the cover.
I forgot about the cover was actually the last thing we did. We just wanted to put down some gold vinyl. And I've used vinyl a lot before, but the gold apparently is sheer, so it's thinner and it's not as forgiving. And Arin was helping me on that, and it was very frustrating. And in the end, it worked out, but
Yeah, I think when I was rolling it on, I had a class right after that was luckily in the room that was right there, but luckily I was with a professor that knew exactly what I had been doing on this piece, so I did not feel as bad for being a few minutes late.
I have a question regarding I don't know what you refer to them as the bars, separating the women from the observers. And so one question is, were they really there, or was that your creation? And if so, what do they represent? Because I'm somehow thinking that it's oh, I don't know, protecting the women from the observers or something along those lines?
Um,
Were
so,
they really there, the bars?
no. So the bars are to play off the the pop-up book A Day in the Zoo that I briefly showed. There's a you can also see it in the gallery. So in the original Day in the Zoo, there are animals behind there, and they say like, look at the monkeys, watch them, whatever. So I decided to put the women behind there, kind of exotified, the gaze of, involving them. Um, and I the rice terraces are a very well-known tourist site in China. So I decided to put them in a painting so that you're in a museum watching the women in front of a painting of those terraced rice fields. The the little sayings on the bottom, they advert on the internet, they're advertising a fermented rice water that you can use to have beautiful hair. And so I put the directions that I found online, how to make that, right, that fermented rice water for your hair. Do you guys have any thoughts about that? Do you remember the article about the company in Europe that was selling the rice water shampoo? Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the readings that we were doing to familiarize ourselves with the theme of the piece. And we actually ended up doing the spin on it with the water
Okay.
bottles.
Great.
Colette and I designed these water bottle labels that were placed as refreshments that displayed like, oh, it's fermented rice water, it's 100% organic, it helps your hair, repairs it, makes you look youthful, which is usually what the companies that are selling these products that are aiming to do, to sort of commodify something that is not from their original culture. And there is that fine line between cultural appreciation and appropriation that I think is really sort of displayed in this piece as well. Also, it was just really great working on those labels. It was probably one of my first sort of adventures into making things print quality. So
They were beautiful. Thank you.
they were a blast to work on.
Travel to that stuff and you were able to see the pictures that they made. Were they near the rice fields or they did not work in the rice fields? Did you travel to see that rice field?
Yeah, I met them during a trip to specifically to see these rice fields or rice terrace fields, and they're there. They're right at the rice fields. Their village is next door. Yeah.
Did they explain it about the rice fields or just watch them there?
They didn't really speak about that at all. Yeah. That's just from doing research afterwards.
All the observers, except for child and I'm not sure, are women. So is there significance to that? Was that who was there at the time, or is that part of a message that you're communicating to us?
So the original observers in my smaller version were people in China that I photographed. There were men and women, and so this little boy, the Chinese woman with the camera, and this woman here, they're all from the original book. And then, but the resolution didn't hold well on a lot of the photos. So I asked the students and staff and faculty, anyone that was willing to be photographed literally I think I gave a day's notice because we were running out of time. And so whoever was available, I photographed them, and it just happened to be, there's a lot of female students in the program. So
Now that you say that.
right. Yeah, so there's Deborah, there's Lauren.
Yeah.
Lauren's reading the title, and Betsy's taking a photo with her camera. And there's Arin standing next to me with the blue coat. Yeah.
And what is the medium that you use? Are they acrylics, or are they the paints or the?
So all of the images are done with inkjet printing. So they're all digital images. They're digital photographs. And some of them are printed on a polypropylene material, and some are printed on a canvas.
So the rice fields themselves, you're saying are also digital images rather than.
Yeah, that's a digital image too. Okay.
Question about with the experience of meeting the women, how do you know, want to get their photo, and what is that experience like?
So when we were here, I traveled with a friend. Her name is Sally Blakemore. She's a paper engineer. She kind of was one of my mentors. She's very wacky. She normally had blue hair. She was, she was in her 70s at the time, and she had dyed blue hair and lots of jewelry. She's very, well, like a wacky artist. And everybody loves, when we travel, everyone loves Sally. But Sally dyed her hair red for this trip because I told her red is good luck to Chinese people. So Sally, they approached us and asked us, and probably told me, this is in 2014, tell her if she wants to take our picture, she can take it for 20 kwai, like 20 Chinese dollars. And then, so I say, Sally, if you want to take a picture with them, or of them, it's 20 kwai. So she starts laughing, and then she just loves to, she gives like too much money, she's giving money, she's buying things from them. And then we're taking pictures, like a lot of pictures together, and there's a lot of laughing. And so it was very lighthearted and like kind of comedic at the time, which is not often the case. Yeah.
And this has been culturally focused. What themes are you thinking about for the future, or are you?
Right now I'm working on a book for Art Philly. Art Philly is a Philadelphia citywide celebration. It'll happen in May, starting in May. It's for the 250th celebration of the city. And I'm representing Chinatown. And so this time it's going to be a 5-page book, 5-spread book. Kind of it's just a story about Chinatown, kind of showing like why Chinatown was founded, the protests, the history, the celebrations, people that live there, and also kind of a commentary on, people go to China, including me, we go to Chinatown to eat, but to show that people are living there, people are studying there, they're worshiping there, and they're living there. So that's what I'm working on now. It's culture again. Yeah. Thank you.
This question is for Arin and Lucy. I'm curious this was a really intense and intensive project that unfolded over 6 months or so. I'm just curious what kind of takeaways you have from having gone through that process and from the beginning to the end.
Well, it was very fun to see physically this all going down because we would have to put in our time, like when we'd be able to come in, and sometimes I might not be able to come in for a week. And then when I did come in again, like there would be like materials scattered all over the floor. But then like the next time I came in, like one part of it would already be done. So it was very interesting seeing Colette's process and how she worked with us and then also like took time and then we would come back and see all this progress. And then another thing I took away was the like techniques that you used for the fabrication, like all the materials. I would like ask questions, and so that was very educational, and it was just fun seeing it all come together.
I think for me, seeing this labor of love come together over time, I also think that it was very interesting seeing what happened in between when I was able to come and when I wasn't. I was usually there pretty regularly since I had a nice gap in my schedule. So it was always nice to see like week after week. And I did end up taking some of the techniques that I had used here in some of my own personal artwork. I went back over the summer after I worked on this piece and made a huge prop for a convention, which was very fun. I think it sort of opened me up to more three-dimensional artworks because most of the time I'm usually working in digital artwork, working in traditional on paper and pencil. So I think that being able to work so closely on a new type of installment and seeing all the work that goes into it, seeing what goes into having a piece be ready for display was definitely an interesting process that I really valued.
Well, thank you, everyone.
For coming. And I just wanted to mention that in 2026, we'll be welcoming the artist Emily Wells to this space, who will be our 2026 interdisciplinary visiting artist in residence. And I am very pleased that both Arin and Lucy will be joining our little crew again this year. So more things to come. Thank you.